This now with Francesca Moody, who's a producer with 2 shows at this year's Fringe, and John Halliday, who's with the Community Renewal Trust, a charity which aims to end poverty and inequality in Scotland. And John, your trust operates in two projects in Edinburgh, one in Bingham, one in Muirhouse, both areas which are much less well off than the area where we're sitting in St James Quarter. Does it feel as if the Edinburgh Festivals are for middle class folk who live in the city centre and not for people who live out in housing schemes?
I think it's quite easy to stereotype it like that. It's not that such culture is irrelevant to people across the city, but there's certainly a sense, and I'm by no means the only person who'd say that the performers, the festivals, even the tourists all enrich the culture of our city, and they also enrich us financially, but that's just not spread equitably across the people who live here. But,
we heard from Sarah there who says the expense might put bigger families off coming into the capital because you have to pay for the tickets, you have to pay for your food, you have to pay for your travel. Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of people who were just about coping until recently, and it's getting worse. But there were also people who were already on the breadline for a lot longer than that. There's people who were meeting on a regular basis with no heat, no way of cooking, no access to food. There may be no shoes and clothes for their own children. This is a real crisis for a lot of people who are struggling, not just with what's called the cost of living, which is a bit of a term we've come to use so often we've maybe forgotten that the words there mean. This is a crisis of affordability of staying alive for people.
So how do you think we can make the festivals relevant to them?
I actually think at the moment the question is more, how do we just get through the next few months? I understand that there is a great need for us to think in the long run about how we can more equitably make access to the festival, but right now in terms of people's hierarchy of needs, there's too many people that are struggling so greatly that I actually think this year, while it's an absolutely relevant discussion to have, it's maybe more about thinking how that'll work next year, and at the moment saying what urgent action is needed, because not only are we having a really difficult summer for people living on the schemes, but also living across the city who are facing hardship. Actually, it's a huge cliche, but winter is coming and it's very clear that things are going to get worse. So if we're not taking action on those things now, it's not clear how we're going to be surviving through into next year.
And John, when you hear that people are spending their own money to be here, I suppose it makes the festival sound even more middle class. You have to earn a certain amount or have a certain amount to be able to perform here. But how can they get their shows out to Pilton, to Muirhouse, to places that you're operating in to make it more accessible?
Well, I think, the 2 neighbourhoods we're working in there, both of them, I don't understand there's any shows within a mile of them, for example, and even bus fares are difficult. So reaching out, I think, is part of it. But our whole ethos as a charity is that, let people lead their own change, if you see what I mean. Let them be involved in it as much as possible. I actually think the root cause of the issues that Francesca's setting out and the issues I'm setting out are the same. That this is the most affluent city in one of the most affluent countries in the whole world, and it means that housing and access to accommodation, things like that, are just sky high.
So would you like to see performers come out to you, or would you like to see performers work with people in the communities that you're working in and helping them put on their own shows so they can have maybe mini Fringe festivals?
Yeah, absolutely. Please don't think that places in the city that experience disadvantage don't want to have a good life and access the arts, nor to be involved in them as well. Actually, what Francesca's kind of pointing out is that it doesn't have to be about being middle class and not. Actually, being involved in the arts in any way actually is it's a great profession to be involved in, but it's always one that tends not to pay most people most of the time the sort of wage that it deserves. I actually think we start talking about the exact problem with our labour market that I talk about across the city. Are jobs paying enough for people to stay alive? Well, not always, I'm afraid.